morning. This is Carmen Lita Scott, President and CEO of the ATL Airport Chamber. Welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. Our media partners this morning are Focus Atlanta and Something Different Companies. Capital Analytics produces Focus Atlanta, which is the most comprehensive investor's guide on the Atlanta metro area. The 200-page report looks at all major sectors and the investment opportunities in the market. After the webinar, I will send a link to this resource. Now a word from our media partner, Something Different Companies.
Thank you, Carmelita. My name is J.R. Atkins, and my organization provides online marketing solutions. So during this time, it's so important that our online presence is helping us. We provide things such as planned and social media posting, where we write and prepare it, you approve it, and then we schedule it through the month as well as monitor it. We do the same kind of content on blogging or email blast or email newsletters, as well as website updating. Basically, our goal is to help you communicate effectively with your target audience, especially during this time when everyone is dependent on online resources so much. So let us know if we can help you in any way. Thank you for letting us be a partner.
Well, JR, thank you. So let JR help your organization grow. Today, Wednesday Wisdom will address cybersecurity. Our keynote speaker is Paul Myers, Managing Director, Right Path Technology, will provide a series of strategic steps that small business owners can take to protect their companies from a cyber attack. Paul is the Managing Director of Right Path Technology. Since 2015, Right Path Technology has provided integrated solutions that enable connectivity, creates efficiencies, and empower clients to deliver value to their clients. Today's business environment is full of overhyped promise and diminished deliverables, and Paul's team is dedicated to delivering measurable results to his clients. Right Path Technology is in the fight with you in regards to cybersecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present Paul Myers.
All right, well, good morning. This nice, cool spring morning. Going to talk about, my name is Paul Myers. I'm with Right Path Technologies. We've been out there for about 5 years now, 2015, but I've got about 30 years of experience in the IT business, starting way back in the mainframe days. So one of the things that Right Path does is we help our clients with cybersecurity, making sure that our ultimate goal is to keep you up and running and keep you in business. And because we know that any kind of downtime is going to cost you money. So one of the key things in this time frame, in this business environment and so forth, is being secure in terms of making sure that your network is secure, your data is secure, both your personal information as well as your business information. So we'll jump right in. Okay. Oh, there we go. All right. So that's me. All right. So I kind of want to start out with a little humor, a little bit. So normal life is we live, we laugh, we get hacked, we stop laughing. So, and that has happened. I've dealt with several of my clients who have gone through this. So what's really going on? Is the problem as bad as people say it is? Am I really at risk? And the answer is that, the answer to the top two questions is yes. The third one is this a lot of hype that a lot of IT companies use to scare people into using their products and software? The answer to that is yes. So I would always say buyer beware. And that's why we have these conversations, because we want to make sure that you are informed before you make a purchase decision. And what should you be concerned with? And so now let's just kind of demystify fact from fiction. So one of the first things is SMBs are not have nothing of value to steal. The reality is hackers love small businesses and they're a primary target because of they steal they're looking for funds to steal, unauthorized wire transfers. I just had a situation with that with a political campaign where they almost got the money, and then ransom data where they block access to your network and to your data until they have been paid. And they steal sensitive information, download personal identifiable information, and sell it on the black market. All that is happening in these days. And here's one of these stats where they say 50% of all small businesses have already suffered a cyber attack. Now, myth, they say, but the hackers aren't interested in me. Reality, that's wrong. You're exactly what the attacker wants. And again, they're looking for credit card and financial data. Most importantly, in many cases, medical data is very highly sought after because there's a lot of, hackers can get more money for that kind of information. They're looking for computer resources. They do a lot of crypto mining, advertising, ransomware, and then they're looking for your user and email credentials so they can send spam and they can recover assets. They can recover and reset other accounts and so forth. So myth number 3, cyber crime syndicates don't waste time on small businesses. Again, there's a theme here. Reality is a lot of the cyber attacks are non-targeted, but there are more small businesses out there than there are large ones. So we are a target. And the thing that the cyber criminals have done is they've gotten smarter. They're not looking specifically for Paul Myers. What they're doing is they're looking for where we go. We go to a lot of popular websites, whether it's Google, Yahoo, places like that. And that's where they try to go to get to you. The other place that they go a lot of is any third-party vendors that you may deal with. And I'll give you an example of that here shortly. But a lot of the attacks are targeted through phishing attacks, and those are mainly from emails, any kind of vulnerability exploitation, and account compromise. And then that goes back to whether they can steal your credentials and things like that. And again, non-targeted attacks focus on volume-based techniques that identify weaknesses. They're looking for weaknesses that basically exploitation that they can leverage. I already have the tools in place to protect my business. In reality, most cyber attacks get past basic security. And we all, have basic security. Even if you have a Windows operating system or a Mac operating system, you do have basic security. A lot of people don't realize that even the Windows 10 or even Windows 7, they all have a built-in software firewall built into it, and it turns on when you turn a computer on, unless you turned it off, of course. But that's not the only thing that can help you. It is a good piece of software, and it will protect you to a degree. But as we see here, firewalls, 95% of ransomware can get past firewalls, and I can explain that. Antiviruses, same thing, 66%. And, or even phishing attacks, they can get past you as well. A lot of the software that we are still using this day, like for example, with antivirus, it's not bad software. And should you have it? Yes, you should. But it's not, the concept behind an antivirus software is about 20 to 25 years old. And we can get into that. I'll get into that in some detail as well a little bit later. So let's just kind of, do a reality check. Are you doing the things, are you doing anything that you can do to protect your company against attacks? Are you clear on what security measures your IT staff or the vendor who's taking care of your IT is doing to keep you safe? And then what are some of the areas that keep you up at night? And do you have an action plan for a cyber attack? Does your IT staff or vendor have a plan? And have you gone over that plan at all with them? And then are you overly concerned or not too concerned? So one of the things, this is just another, I mean, as business owners, we all deal with risk every day. You know, it's nothing, this is nothing new. This is just another part of it. And that's really how I like looking at cybersecurity and even IT support in general. It really is dealing with risk. And we, like it says here, we deal with risk on a daily basis. You know, we purchase liability insurance, workers' compensation, key man insurance, errors and omissions, cybersecurity insurance, and so forth. Those are what I consider investments. You're investing in your business to keep it safe just in case an event happens. We assess employee performance and so forth. We solicit feedback from customers and that type of thing. We're trying to get information about our business so we can always continually assess risk. Well, cybersecurity is no different. It's basically when we define risk, or how, I like to look at risk, especially from a cybersecurity perspective, it's a culmination of events. It's not just one little thing that's going to get you. It is a culmination of events. And here's a little illustration I like. Whoops, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry, I don't know how that got in there. But there's a guy in the middle of in a kayak in the middle of nowhere, and the other picture was supposed to be a shark. So I'm sorry about that. The kayaking in the middle of nowhere with a great white shark, that's big risk. So if you put those two events together, so if you have an individual guy in the kayak in the middle of nowhere, that's somewhat risky. And a great white shark in the middle of nowhere, that's risky as well. But if you put those two events together, that's when you get big risk. So I apologize for that. So measuring risk, a company should define the importance of risk and mapping gaps, a good definition of risk and defining what's important to it. What is at risk? Be clear on the actions to reduce the risk, the likelihood versus impact, that type of thing. We're all familiar with those things. In the cybersecurity realm, mapping gaps and protection, because like I said earlier, the hackers are out there. They're looking for weaknesses. So we want to be able to, you have we don't want to be able to, if you have a Windows environment, which most people do, you want to make sure that all the security patches are up to date. I mean, Microsoft usually issues, not usually, they do issue security updates every Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning. Are those security patches getting installed every week? Are they up to date? Is there a use policy, internet use policy for your employees if you have employees, and have they read it and signed it? That's really important. Do you have the appropriate end user protection? And what I mean by that is end user or endpoint protection are your computers basically, and do they have the right level of protection to keep you safe from an attack? And like they always say, it takes one click, and that's really it. And I've got several examples of one click, and it caused a major problem for this company. The need to increase security. And like I said, this isn't your network of 10 to 20 years ago. 10 to 20 years ago, a good antivirus software was probably enough. And some of the things that Microsoft had put in their operating system was probably enough, a firewall and that type of thing. But the threat landscape has changed so much. A lot of the guys who are, well, not guys, but companies, they are out there doing these hacking and this criminal activity. It's an enterprise. These are well-funded. Many of these places are well-funded organizations that are out there looking for this information and looking to get your information. It's not some man or woman in some dark room that's, kind of trying to mess with you and look for things. These are fine-tuned organizations that are looking for this information. So we have to look at network security differently. We have to understand what that threat landscape is, and then understand your current state of security. What protections are already in place? How are they managed? This is not a set it and forget it kind of situation. How do you respond to an event? So good fundamentals. You definitely want to implement a good network security plan. And I really should put this at the top, but user education is critical. Making sure that your staff, your employees, or whomever you work with is constantly aware that there are threats that are out there, especially when it comes to email or going on certain websites and that type of thing, and clicking on links that you're not familiar with, and kind of hovering over those links to see where that information is originating from, and so forth. Having a good, strong endpoint protection and monitoring program, and I'll go into that in just a second. Device patching, that means your computers mainly, making sure, again, those Windows updates, and even computers have updates, whether it's a Lenovo or Dell or what have you, HP. They all have what they call firmware updates that will help you stay safe. And then finally here, a good password management program and two-factor authentication. Those are all very good things, and not having your passwords, listed on a Post-it note and that type of thing. You want to definitely make sure that you have that. And then two-factor authentication, that mainly means that it's a combination of your password and another process that identifies or verifies you are who you are. So I'll give you an example. Today, when I logged into my email, I put it's Office 365, or I put my password in, but then I got another screen that came up. It said, Microsoft is going to send you a code, a 6-digit code, to your cell phone to make sure that you are who you say you are. That is what they call two-factor authentication, or a lot of folks in the business will call it 2FA. That is a lot of people think, well, it's a pain because I have to wait. I can't get to my software or whatever, or the service that I'm using quickly enough. But I can't tell you how many times where I have clients who have implemented two-factor authentication that has saved them. And it's well worth the time, the extra, 30 seconds to a minute, if that much, to verify and validate who you are. And so I can't emphasize that enough. So basic versus advanced protection. Basic protections include, and I've kind of touched on these before, but monitoring, computer monitoring and security updates. This is where you can get a company such as our company, where you can have software loaded on your computers, and that software's job is to monitor that computer. Security patching again. Another big one is backup and disaster recovery, especially when it comes to ransomware software or ransomware incidents. If a company is able to get into your network and ransom that network in terms of locking it down and not allowing you access to your data, if it can do that, one of the ways around and not having to pay the ransom, which you shouldn't do anyway, but is to have a good backup system. And they're very good at that. And they can get around that as well. So you have to be careful even with your backup system. And then that leads into disaster recovery and so forth. Routine vulnerability scanning. There are services out there that do that. endpoint protection, malware, antivirus, and anti-ransomware, and then managed firewall. So all of these type of systems are things that you can put into place that will help you. It's a layered approach. It's not just a one thing that will do it. Now, so we're talking about basic versus advanced. Let's take one for example here. Antivirus software versus, let's just say, anti-ransomware. There are a lot of good antivirus and anti-malware softwares out there. I use a whole bunch of them. McAfee is a very popular one, Norton, Symantec, Avast, AVG, so forth. They're all very good softwares and they do a lot of things. But the basic premise of an antivirus software is that in order for it to do what it does, a virus has to be introduced to your computer, or there has to be a virus on your computer in order for it to remove it. Well, say for example, you don't have the latest antigens that it can, and these guys are, these hackers are good. They can push in what they call a 0-day attack. And what a 0-day attack is that it's they can push something out there that is so new that the antivirus software companies haven't developed an antigen for it, or a virus, an antigen for it to remove it. So it does what it does. I mean, it's going to wreak havoc on your system or your network. Whereas, let's say, for example, the newer kind of software is, they call them endpoint protection. And they develop these, they're really looking for ransomware type of attacks, which are a lot more sophisticated. And the premise behind that software, for example, is to stop it before it gets into your environment. And how does it do that? And I'll give you a quick example. I've got a client over by the airport, and they have this endpoint protection software. And one day, one of their employees found an interesting article. It's a freight company, and they found an interesting article on their personal computer. And they took that link and they sent it to themselves on their corporate email address. Okay. So the guy gets to work the next day. He opens up the email, he clicks the link, and it starts an executable, or it tries to start an executable that had ransomware attached to it. Well, the software service, or the endpoint protection software that we put in place, its premise or its guidance is to check anything that is executed or started, to check it against a list of maladies. And if it can't find it, it's just going to stop it. It's not. And then what happens is it'll send an alert to me that says, we found something that's suspicious. We just killed it. Now, it may be okay, but it may not be. So its premise is everything that comes in is bad until we say that it's okay. So it stopped it in its tracks. I mean, and their revenue per day is pretty good. I mean, it's not like a couple $100. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars a day in revenue that could have been lost had that link been able to execute itself and shut down that network. So that's the thing. I mean, it says everything is suspicious, before, and then it's up to us to figure out whether it's good or not. I mean, I get notifications all the time saying that we've stopped this. Is this okay? And then we can do the investigation to see if it is okay. And if it is, we put it on the list to say it's okay. If it's not, then we just stop. We just said, no, it's not. So that's kind of a more involved explanation as to the difference between an antivirus and an anti-ransomware software. Next. So some advanced things, advanced security protections, we're looking at company policies, configuration standards for your hardware, user standards and training, advanced email protection filtering. We can talk about that as well. That's a big deal these days. What they call DNS filtering. Now DNS, and again, I know I'm a geek, but I'll explain what DNS is. What they call domain name services. And so, for example, a domain is like rightpathtech.com. That's a domain. But behind that domain, there are numbers. There's an address. And domain name services, that's what it does. It's just a translation. It translates that name that we can all remember, because we don't remember numbers as good as we do names. And it'll translate that name into a number. And that's all happens behind the scenes. Well, what hackers will do, they will try to exploit that and so forth. So what these filters do is they have these artificial intelligence algorithms built into them, and they know a lot of times these AI algorithms know, again, is this good? Is this bad? Do we know what it is? If it doesn't, let's investigate it. But the premise is, let's stop first before we go forward. Any kind of protection monitoring, threat targeting, attack monitoring, and some sort of business continuity plans. I mean, business continuity planning is a big thing today because of the environment that we're in with COVID-19, with business continuity, people working remotely and so forth. That's always a important thing to think about for your business. Whether you're one person or 1,000, it doesn't matter. And then it only takes one little click. And then talking about, and this is more in line with a lot of the email security. Again, here's another one of these little facts that I found. 92% of malware is delivered by email, and that is pretty true. I mean, that is very accurate. A lot of the incidents that I've been involved with, most of the time, it started out with one click from an email. So again, that's where your user education comes into play. That's where it's really, really good. Think before you click. And then also there are advanced email threat protection services out there that have this artificial intelligence built into it that will look at certain things that says, you know what, this looks like a phishing attack. Let's just block this. And I've got some clients who have that, who have those services as well, and they do work. And some of the things you can, again, stop and think before you click. Do you recognize this sender? A lot of times it's good, it could say Paul at Right Path Tech, but if you hover over that email address, it might say something different. And if it says something different, then that's not my email address. And are you expecting an attachment from somebody? A lot of times that's where they come from, the attachments. Is it normal for that contact to send attachments? If it's not normal, then, I had a situation with a phishing attack for this gubernatorial campaign, where they changed the domain name by one letter. So, and it got through, and and the lady that was about to wire the money, and somebody caught it, thank God. And so, they called me, and we looked at it. Well, now we have that DNS filtering I was telling you about, and also some endpoint the advanced email threat protection that is actually looking for phishing type of attacks. And that goes back to that artificial intelligence, those bots and so forth that they put into play there. So email is one of the weaker areas, and that's where user training and awareness is really, really important. So to summarize, it's important to have a good understanding of what the threat landscape is. It is an investment in tools and services. And to be honest with you, a lot of these tools and services really don't cost a lot of money. And it's well worth the investment. I mean, if the amount it gets way, way up there, you really probably want to shop around. you want to develop a process that continually moves you towards an acceptable level of risk. Again, keeping those cumulative events away from each other. You definitely want to, a shark swimming out there in a lagoon by itself, with nobody in the water, kind of not a big deal, unless you get in the water and you're in there with the shark. That accumulation of events, that's where you want to lower that risk. You definitely want to look beyond some of the basic protections, firewall, and so forth. Although they're still very important. I'm not lessening the importance of them. There are things today, because of the threat landscape today, that you want to put into play. And then the main thing is hold your IT staff or vendor accountable, keeping you informed. One of the things I try to tell a lot of people that I talk to, and even my clients, is that, there's one, a lot of times if we don't have one, we outsource our accounting to a CPA or a bookkeeper or whomever. And I don't know about you, but I talk to my bookkeeper at least once a month. And because I want to know, where we stand financially. Well, you should really look at it from an IT perspective. It should be the same level. I mean, you should have a meeting with your vendor at least once a month and say, okay, what's going on? What have you seen? And so forth. And they should be able to tell you that. So it should be at that same level. And then have a plan to react when some sort of event occurs. So the basic question is, can I afford to do this? And the answer is, the real question is, can you afford not to do it? And I love this little saying, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the mouth, and that's true. And that's it for me. So I appreciate you listening. I appreciate your time today. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
This is Cassandra Johnson from New Wave Connect. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, yes, that was really good information. I really appreciate you presenting that. I'm a small company of one right now, but I'm looking to grow. And with the recent events with different types of security breaches, even with the news with Zoom, ironically, we are on Zoom. But how do you guys address those type of issues of new breaches coming in and a company working with your company? Do you go in and do updates and just make sure that that company's not using certain products? How do you guys address that?
Well, it's a combination, really. It's a combination of what, some of the things that we do. Like, for example, the clients that we have the monitoring software on all of the computers that company may have. We also use the endpoint protection, like the freight company I mentioned. We also back up, in some cases, we back up their data. Well, in all cases, we back up their data. However, there are different levels of data backup and so forth. Now, for example, let's say you have Office 365 or even Google Drive or Google for Business. Every hacker in the world is out to get Microsoft and Google. So their level of awareness, and I mean, they have whole teams, plural, that are looking for threats and so forth, because they know that there are a lot of people there. So Microsoft and Google are very good places you can go to keep your data safe. Like, most of the information that I have is on Office 365, and I feel very comfortable having it there. So you just want to have it in a place that is secure, and then you want to be able to put some sort of backup in place just in case something happens there. It's, you don't want to have one place to go for everything. You want to make sure that if you have it on, let's say, a Google Drive or Google for Business or Office 365, you still should have it backed up someplace else. Like I have in my office, I have these what they call they're called NASs. They're called a network attached storage, and that's just a fancy way of saying that it's It's just a real big hard drive. That's all it is. And I keep a copy of my data there. I have clients where I back up their data to the cloud, separate from Microsoft, and things like that. So you just kind of don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. The other thing is just being aware. The big thing, and I can't emphasize this enough, is awareness and making sure that, you know, when you see a link, before you click it, you hover over it and see if it, you know, if it's a weird little URL that you don't recognize, you may not want to click it. You may want to go back to that person and say, hey, I just got this email from you, and this link that you have attached in it doesn't look right. Or did you send this? And so forth. And just taking that extra step, which maybe not take a long time. It doesn't take a long time to verify that, you know, you can do that. So I hope that answered your question.
Paul, we have a caller on the line, and the caller's question is, if your computer gets hacked with ransomware, explain about just turning your computer off at that moment and not to restore Explorer, Edge, Chrome, or whatever search engine you were using when resetting the computer, and will this save your computer?
It depends. But yes, turning it off is definitely the first step. I mean, or really removing it from any kind of, especially if your computer is in a networked environment. And what do I mean by that? Is that it's in an environment where it either is connected to another computer in that same group, if you will, or not. But if you get ransomware, usually, again, they're looking for money to decrypt your computer. So at that point, you know, you really just have a choice to either pay them the ransom, or if you have, again, that's why a backup is important. If you have a backup of your data, then you really don't have to pay the ransom, and you because you're you can safely back it up. But yeah, turning off your computer, keeping them away from the information is critical. Now, if you need to get access to anything else on there, you can turn it back on as long as you're not connected to the internet. Because once you connect to the internet, they have the software that knows when you come back online. They're monitoring your information. I mean, they're monitoring your connectivity. And if you can turn it on without getting on the internet, which is very doable, then you can see if you can get that information. But in many ways, once you get a ransomware attack, like I said, you either pay them the ransom or you go to a backup. You can remove that hard drive from your computer, reinstall, and kind of start over again, and then restore your information from your backup and kind of start over again. And then you've gotten past it, and you don't have to pay the ransom. But yeah, you need to start fresh. It's just once you're compromised, you know, like I say in the business, once you're compromised, you're compromised. And the only way you can really get past that, you have to start over.
So Paul, our next caller wants to know, if you're on a network and you hit any virus, what do you recommend?
That's a good question. You should, hopefully you already have antivirus software on there, and you have to go into a mitigation strategy in terms of getting rid of the virus. Again, a lot of the antivirus softwares, I'll give you an example. I've had situations where a virus has been introduced to a server where, you know, at a previous job, right? And it was so new that a lot of the antivirus software that we were working with didn't catch it. So what we ended up having to do was look for different antivirus softwares to catch it. And we finally did find one that did catch it and got rid of it. So, you know, it just, again, there's different mitigation strategies. And I just say that to say that, you know, a lot of times you have to That's why having an experienced IT professional is really good in your, have a relationship with one is really good, because there are other, mitigation strategies that you can engage in to get rid of that virus. Not all antivirus softwares are created equal. However, there are ways to get rid of it, do things. And again, sometimes, once there's you're in a compromised position, it could be where you do have to start over again. And we try to not have that, or we try not to get to that point, but sometimes that's a reality. So that's the main point, is to get rid of it. Find a tool, find something that can get rid of it. And again, I'll go back to the endpoint protection where, and that's why I love the endpoint protection, especially in these days, is because its premise is everything that comes into your computer is suspect. Everything, whether it's good or not, it's suspect. And, then let's stop it in its tracks and not even let it get in to keep you up and running.
So Paul, the next caller would like to know, with everyone telemarketing, some people still use desktop computers at work. And so while you're at home, if your desktop is still connected to your corporate network, are you protected if someone goes and unplugs the computer while it's not in use?
Okay, let me understand. Okay, so you have a desktop computer at work and you're working remotely from home and you're connected to your desktop at work from your computer at home. Is that the basic?
No, I think what they're trying to say is that they're working from home on their own computer. However, their desktop is still plugged in at work and they haven't been at work for a while. So are they protecting the desktop computer if they unplug it?
Oh, absolutely. That's the ultimate protection. Yes. Because even, like, I know a lot of people think like, well, I'm going to turn my computer off and nobody can get to it. And that's not true, especially if it's still connected to the network. Because if you look at your computer, let's say you turn your computer off and you have your network cable plugged in, and you look at the network where your network cable is plugged in, you still see those little lights blinking. It's still connected. So, but suffice it to say that if you turn your computer at work off and you disconnect it from the network, then you're pretty safe at that point. Yes. I think that's hopefully that answered the question. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, as long as you're not connected to the internet or any kind of network within the building that you're in, that's pretty safe.
Okay, you spoke about a link that determines if things are okay. So does that link also check attachments for corruption when they're sent via email?
The link that let's say, for example, you have a link in one of your emails. One of the good practices to start getting into is to take your mouse and take the pointer on your mouse and hover over that link before you click. Kind of like going back to the old days when we were in school, look both ways before you cross the street. It's the same concept. I mean, you want to look before you click, or hover over that link before you click. And what you'll see is, what it'll give you is it'll tell you what the actual link is. Because what hackers can do is they can make a link look it could be ABC actually, .com, but they can make it look like Bank of America, and they're very good at it. That's why it's good to hover over those links to see exactly where those links are coming from. And then if you don't recognize that link, then don't click it. Or contact the person who sent you the email with the link in it and say, hey, I just got this email from you that has a link that's going to this particular site. Is this okay? And that way you can kind of protect yourself and so forth. But the other thing is that there are some advanced threat protection softwares or services out there that will scan your emails, and it's looking for those type of bad actors or bad links and so forth. It's looking for that, and and the filters are pretty smart, and they're pretty good, and they will catch them, and a lot of times, like the ones that I use a company called Barracuda, and Barracuda has been in the business for a long time. They've been doing this for a long time. They know what they're doing, and a lot of times they won't even let the email come through. They'll send you a notice saying, "Hey, we blocked this," but they won't even let it come through. So, however, let me also just kind of step back and say there is no 100% foolproof way of stopping everything. That's why you have to be vigilant and have different ways of and have knowledge to say, well, do I really need to click this, or should I kind of step back and verify first and then go from there?
Okay, J.R. Atkins has his hand raised. So J.R., go ahead with your question, please.
So if you could remind us, Paul, about e-commerce. Many of us we may be taking credit cards on our website, or we may be just using email to get payments through PayPal, invoicing, or whatever. Can you kind of remind us of what our responsibility is to our customers and just how to keep ourselves safe with payments?
Yeah, PCI compliance. PCI compliance basically stands for Payment Card Industry Compliance. And if you take credit cards, you have a huge responsibility. When the whole payment card compliance aspect started to probably, maybe 2000, in the mid 2000, like 2005, 6, it was really, the industry was like, look, you have to self-police. But since then, because it's gotten so crazy that now states have mandated or made law a lot of these those payment card industry standards. And in most cases, JR and others, is that the payer, or in other words, the company that you use that is going to take that payment on your behalf. It could be Square, it could be Bank of America, it could be your bank, or whoever that payer is, Fiserv. They have certain responsibilities, as do you. And what they will make you do is, like, for example, any kind of e-commerce transaction, it all has to be encrypted, for example. So the credit card numbers can't be visible. You can only use the last 4 digits of the credit card can be visible. Everything else has to be encrypted or hidden, those kind of things. They will have you go through a yearly review. You have to fill out a yearly questionnaire that says that you are taking the precautions that you need to take in order to receive credit cards. And if you don't do that, for most of the payers nowadays, because it is law, that they will not take your payments. They will stop you from taking payments, or you can go someplace else, but they won't take your payments for you, and so forth. And if you're, a lot of times, if for bigger companies too, if you're caught and you do have a breach and you haven't done those mitigating strategies, that means fines. And so I hope that answered your question, JR. But the main thing is that the credit card numbers themselves, there has to be some way of hiding the majority of those numbers, except for the last 4 digits. All of the transactions, if you have an e-commerce site, all of the transactions have to go through, no exceptions, have to go through a secure port. And what I mean by that is, if you notice, like some links, it'll say HTTP, and then some will say HTTPS. That's a secure port. And that means that any data that's going through that port or traveling through the internet is encrypted, meaning that a hacker can't be out there, they can't sniff the line and be able to just to see the credit card numbers. It's all gobbledygook. The only way it can get decrypted is when it gets to the other end, or the other end of that transaction. And then there are computers on the other end that can decrypt that number, and so forth. So I use Square. Square is a very good software, and it's but again, I still have to I have to comply with their protection standards. Same thing with Bank of America. A lot of people use Clover. Same thing, and it's just you have to be. And there's some accountability on your part, a lot of accountability on your part as well. So I hope that answers it.
Well, our time is almost up for this morning. We have time for one more question. And that question is, can you list number 1 through free AV ratings that'll help on individual computers that aren't networked?
That's a really, really good question. I like AVG, one of the top ones. I also like Avast is another good one. Trend Micro, I found over the years to be very, very good. I know I'm going past 3, but F-Secure is another good one. The big ones out there, McAfee and Norton, they're very good. However, the reason I don't maybe put them at the top, it's just been my experience, is a lot of times they put too much stuff in there, and it will bog your computer down. Now, I'm not anti-McAfee and I'm not anti-Norton. This is just from my experience. But they're all very good. And here's another thing that you should know too is, if you have Windows 10, Microsoft has an antivirus software that comes with it. So let's say, for example, you buy a computer or you get a computer and you turn it on and you don't install any of the other ones, there's still Windows Defender is still on there, and it will come on automatically. So you are protected. Now, is Windows Defender the best one out there? It's not bad, but I'd say the top 3 that I just mentioned. AVG I like a lot. Avast is a very good one. Trend Micro, F-Secure, and then it can kind of go down from there. The other thing is that you should look into some sort of endpoint protection. And if you'd like, you can email me and I can recommend one for you. Usually the endpoint protections are more of a service that you have to purchase than you can just purchase antivirus software. Another one is Malwarebytes. And I don't want to go over, Carm, but Malwarebytes is another one. It looks for different things as well. All great questions. Thank you so much.
Well, Paul, thanks for sharing this valuable information with our membership. The event was recorded, so we should have it out in a couple of days. It'll be up on our website and our YouTube channel. And we'll send everyone on the call a link so that they can review that information again if they like. The next webinar is on Thursday, April the 16th. The ATL Airport Chamber and Noonan Coweta Chamber have partnered to present a free Google webinar called Reach Customers Online with Google during the COVID-19 crisis. Also on Friday, April the 17th, during Friday Facts, we're going to address navigating COVID-19 for nonprofits. So if you know any nonprofits that need some information, please steer them to our website, which is www.airportchamber.com. Take care, continue to follow the COVID-19 recommendations to stay safe, and the ATL Airport Chamber looks forward to seeing you at our next event. Bye-bye for now. Enjoy your day.